All right, so let's get our meeting going. Let's see, approval or correction of minutes and workshop notes. Where do we stand with that, Deb?
Everybody should have the final copies with the typos corrected and should have had a chance to look at them so that we can vote them. I don't know, Brad probably can't because he wasn't at the meeting when these, but Lydia was. So when was the May 1st meeting?
What was the date?
You want to make a motion?
April 29th. Sorry, Harvey. Looking at the
You want me to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll second that.
All right, which one is this? For April?
The special, we have the special meeting, was it the?
April 29th, right?
Yeah, and then, see, I sent them around. You think I can remember? I don't remember dates, Harvey. You know that. I'm not a date person. So. Lydia, you got those in front of you?
I don't.
I sent around.
Maybe the 28th or
Can you just give us the dates?
All right, if you just look at let me just look at a calendar real quick. It was the, the second Thursday of April would have been the first one.
Uh-huh.
So that would have been the 8th, April 8th.
Right, that was our regular April meeting.
All right, so that was a regular one. Why don't we just vote on that one first?
Okay.
That's all right. All right, I heard a motion from Lydia.
That we accept the April 8th minutes.
All right, did you second that?
I seconded it.
Okay. All right, any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Harvey, aye.
Debbie, aye.
Harvey, aye. Deb, that was an aye.
Yes.
And Lydia, that was an aye.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you. Then the other one was April the 29th. Is that correct, Deb?
I'm checking now. I have to check.
Yeah, it would have been.
I can't remember dates because we had.
29th was also a Thursday.
Okay.
So that would have been our nearest one right before the planning board meeting. That's why we had it then. So.
Yeah, that's right. That was the date, right?
All right. Lydia, did you make a motion?
I will make a motion to approve the minutes from the April 29th special meeting.
Thank you. Deb, did you?
And I'll second that.
Okay. All right. Any discussion? All in favor? Harvey, aye.
Deb, aye.
Okay.
We're good.
Very good.
All right.
I'm Brad. I'm sorry. I didn't hear. Oh, Brad wasn't there. That's right.
No.
Okay.
No, not that one. I was not.
Oh, all right. Say that again, Brad.
I wasn't at the 29th meeting.
Okay. Okay. And you were at the 8th meeting?
I was, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So did you? I didn't hear your vote on that. I was getting confused.
Oh, aye.
Who was there? That was an aye. Okay. So get that, Deb. Thank you for clarification.
No problem.
All right. All right. So featured items, the budget, trails, mapping, and grants. I'm out of pocket. I'm not where I could get to my folders and stuff on the budget right now, so I don't remember the exact balance that we have left. Recently processed a invoice from Peter Stedman for the mapping and kiosk poster work he's been doing, and I did a kind of a Zoom update with him last night to see where we were and try to get some of Crown Farm, Grills Preserve, Hopkinton, and Depot Square to a point where we got the maps finalized, and he's got the draft kiosk poster information, except for the maps, pretty close to being ready. So I believe that we will. That's our priority for the budget, the remainder of our budget to be used for that. And if we got anything left over, we've always got just materials and stuff that we can buy for all the new, for the kiosk posters and so forth. So I'll be trying to finalize where we are with that and see what we can put into purchasing the kiosk posters and all the superfluous stuff that goes along with that.
Okay.
I mean, that's just meant to be informative. If anybody's got any questions on that, I'd be happy to discuss it. I do not have all the numbers in front of me right now since
We do
I'm
have,
not,
Harvey?
what's that?
Just, Deb,
Yes.
we do have to do this at the June meeting to see how much of our budget we've used before we start on the next fiscal year, correct?
Right, and of course
That's when you really need the numbers for, is for our next, you'll really need the numbers for our next meeting, is what I'm saying.
well, yeah, but we need it for planning purposes now, and we just paid Peter for up through sometime in April. I don't remember the exact date, so I've got to again. It's more of me trying to just be on top of it, so that we don't have too much left in the kitty, and we don't go over as well.
That's right. Okay.
So there'll be an update in June. Farm viability ordinance and farm viability ordinance solar. I watched the. I wasn't able to make the town council meeting. By the way, I watched the the ethics commission presentation too. I think it was like the next night. And then I think the next night after that, I watched the town council hearing on the solar. And, you know, sort of making the assumption, it looks like the farm viability ordinance will be taken up by the town council. I believe that would be the proper words. Bob, would you kind of just fill us in on where that's, you know, what's likely to happen and what kind of time frame?
Yeah, I believe Councilor Geary has taken that on as he's going to kind of shepherd that through. I don't know what his time frame is, but you know, he's probably going to want to get going on it pretty quickly.
But when you get past your budget session, I mean, you guys are getting close to having the vote from the town voters and stuff now. That's probably pretty good timing. You changing directions there. Mm-hmm. You've got the big ordinance out of your way. So he will bring something. He will be like a sponsor. Is that what we would
I believe so.
consider it to be?
I believe so. I think right at the end of that meeting, I believe he did say he would take that on and get people together and start initiating, you know, hearings and so forth to look at that. And really I think that was the intent all along is let's just finish one thing, then we have time, and let's just sit down and focus on this and do it right.
So are we just focusing on the farm solar, or are we focusing on updating the entire farm viability ordinance?
We're going to look at the whole farm viability ordinance and see where we can update it to make it better.
I can just mention that we had, it's probably been 3 years or so now that we had a series of workshops with farmers because we hadn't really done that since, 15 years ago or so, whenever that ordinance came, when we shepherded it in back then. And we didn't have anything that I thought was very earth-shattering that we could come up with that would help farmers. But we had some things in there. And we also had a couple of places where we actually had taken an initiative to tighten up a couple of rules in there too that we thought were looser than they needed to be. They would be just as viable, tightened up a little bit. So I remember we had some stuff in there about like about tax shops, that the farms can have a tax shop, but you got to have, you got to have a stable or something. In other words, we just made some logical connections. Yeah. We had the drafts of all of that. I believe Lisa, town clerk, asked me to provide something. I don't even remember what it was now. I've been kind of busy the last few weeks, so sometimes I just I try to spin something out real fast so that it gets out. And I think it was about that, of what was the what were all the other changes besides solar that we had worked on, or it was along those lines anyway. And I dug out a ordinance, with the changes in blue or red, depending on which, adding, addition, taking out, or whatever, might have been, and that sort of thing. And I gave that to her, and I think that's the most logic thing we'll work with. Maybe we can make some commitments within the Conservation Commission, Deb, to I'll commit to pulling that whatever I sent to Lisa and circulate it. I could circulate it to you first, possibly, so you can cross-check to be sure you think it's
The latest one.
our latest.
I have one saved in the cloud that I think was our last draft. And it was, if I recall correctly, Harvey, not everything that we sent to the town council at that time got changed, got approved. Am I right?
Well, we never got. We had, I think, 2 workshops with the town council back then, and they, like everybody else, they got, things got busy. Either it got to be budget season, or it got to be some other ordinance or something else was pressing. And we were really just, at that point, we were really just looking at it at a time. This is the way I remember it, a time when the time would be right to present that to, have the town council schedule a hearing. And it didn't happen. And somewhere about that time, election time came up too, so you just have,
insane.
there's only so many sweet spots, when things are going to work. So it didn't happen. And then all the solar went crazy, and other things just kind of took a back seat. It's kind of the way I recall it.
That was right about the time that solar was becoming a thing.
Yeah.
Too, so
why don't you and I just share back and forth, see if we can, because we've got the most time in back at that time working on that ordinance. We share it back and forth. Lydia, were you involved in that rewriting of the farm viability ordinance?
no,
Like 3 or 4 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So well, just share it with everybody. I didn't want to send the copy out and it turns out it's the wrong copy. It just gets confusing. But why don't I just?
Yeah. And
I'll share it with everybody. Deb, you just you see that you think it's the wrong. Anybody else thinks I got the wrong version? We'll dig a little deeper and get the correct one. But anyway, so we should have it agreed among ourselves, and then I would say at our next meeting, we should just walk ourselves right through that ordinance, front to back in some manner, and get ourselves up to speed and see if we sense anything is not where it ought to be or it should be. Here's a new item that we might want to pick up, and then see if we actually see a need to go and talk with the farmers again.
yeah, and I'd like to keep it. We went through so much the first time with the meetings and the hearings, and we really didn't have a hearing. We just had meetings. About
workshops.
getting the definitions right and all that. I don't think we have to revisit that too much, but we do have to look at the solar piece again, and we have to look at as a matter of economic development, looking at farms as economic development instead of just saying it's a farm. It's economic development for the town, and we have to think about that too. That's the component I'd like to see if we're going to update. I don't know what we can do. We gotta get, as you say, Harvey, we have to put our thinking caps on and come up with good suggestions if we're going to change anything at all.
And, okay, anybody just hop in on any of this stuff you want to, either with you on the commission or who else we got here tonight.
Just one recommendation I would make is once you come up with the version of the ordinance recommendations that you want to talk about in your next meeting, if you could provide that to Lisa or to Jeff along with your agenda and have it on the agenda, and then they'll put it on the website so people can look at it ahead of time.
Okay. All right, Deb, would you put that on an action list so I
Yes,
don't
I did.
fail to do that? Okay, all right, thank you. All right, that makes sense. So anybody, Brad or Lydia, if you want to hop in, I see, just looking to see who else is on here, and according to what I've got, Elaine Calderon is here as well. And be delighted to have any comments from Elaine as well.
I also, if I could just make one more recommendation, if what I would start with is once you come up with the latest version and you put that out there and post that, instead of having side discussions, via email or whatever, just write down or make notes on what, additions, subtractions, adds, changes that you think should be be made to the draft, and discuss that during the meeting instead of trying to do it, on the side. I know it takes a little bit longer that way, but the thing is, once you start having a conversation with 3 or 4 different commission members,
we understand.
start to go into, open meeting laws.
It would be easier if we were meeting in person, and I'm hoping and praying after the news tonight that we will be in June.
That we
It's a
will what?
lot easier to communicate when you're face to face.
Yep.
I didn't catch all of that. I apologize, but
Well, the news is that anyone who's been vaccinated does not need to wear a mask indoors or outdoors. So we can go back, and I've had the virus, so we can go back to meeting in person.
that would be wonderful.
Amen. Okay. So I put that note there. That's in our
All right, and I don't think we've had any, what you're calling a side conversation with, or 3 or 4 of us, or, certainly information goes out with the idea that it's to be considered and discussed at the next meeting. We're in an odd situation when we're playing around with a project before the planning board, which is what we came up with the last 2 solar projects, where we have a discussion and we basically have to turn it into a recommendation, and we don't have another meeting between then and when they're going to have theirs. And it's sort of, this is the way we've always done it, is chair or the secretary or somebody writes a summation of what our positions, and by that point we pretty much know what our positions are on the various issues that have come up. And I don't know of any way we can really operate effectively if the planning board is not going to postpone a meeting so they can get our input. It just doesn't work that way. But for this is very much within our ability to we should do basically what you're talking about, Bob, and then have our discussions at the meeting itself. I mean, foreign viability ordinance should work just fine that way. People can identify what areas they have a concern. I would think that a person could, if they see a few things they'd like to add or modify in that ordinance, they could mark something up and circulate that around. The idea is that way everybody sees it in advance, so we're more prepared for the discussion. It's just getting ready for the meeting, basically. I think what you're saying is don't follow that up with back and forth, where it's outside of a meeting. And I'm pretty sure that that's the way we operate. It's just out of a sense of fair play. So I believe that we'll be fine with that. That's my my thoughts on that. Anybody else?
Well, I don't have a problem with us sharing information in between meetings as far as like the copy that I'm going to pull up, and we're going to try to compare to see which one was the last draft. I mean, that has to be done behind the scenes. We can't just wait till the next meeting to do that.
That's, yeah. All right, so I think we got some room to play, and so that when our next meeting comes up, it's a productive meeting.
Yep.
All right. Then we had the Farm Viability Ordinance Solar, and so we might want to make some recommendations again on what we want. We certainly have put together some suggested wording changes as to the qualifications of a farmer. And some of that, it wouldn't be bad if we actually had some input back in. I know we gave it to Gary to circulate it around to farmers in whatever way, just to find out if sometimes we just don't anticipate how a farm is affected by, if you say you got to have 5 years of income in a minimum income in a row or whatever we came up with, think, well, that should be fine, but there might be some reason that a farmer never gets that income level 5 years in a row, but he gets it 3 out of 5 or something. So anyway, it would be just trying to be sure that we don't harm a farmer when we don't realize that we are. And I'm talking about the people that I'm speaking of people that we generally consider to be real farmers, that we don't have a problem. We're not walking that edge of saying, well, they're not really a farmer. So that would be nice, but I guess that can be done. We can have the invitations maybe by July or sometime. We could, if we need to, we could invite the farmers to, maybe we'll be back into a regular meeting situation too, where we can meet in the town hall.
I'm hoping June's going to be the first month that we'll be trying that, going back to normal. The one thing about the farm definition, Harvey, didn't we also use the USDA, the DEM, their definitions as well? I thought we went through all this the last go around.
Well, we worked off of DEM's definition of a farm, and they may have gotten theirs from the federal government for all I know. I don't, everybody copies everybody else.
Right.
So, but DEM, meanwhile, has, I believe, has tightened up their definition of a farmer as well, from what it was. What we had is what DEM had at the time. Right now, where you got solar, where it's a potential windfall of bigger scale than anything we had for farmers before, I can see why non-farmers would want to try to find a way to qualify under that. So we just need to find a way to make that not happen.
Yeah. Okay.
Does anybody else got anything on farms?
Lydia?
Okay, then I just put this other one on there because I wanted to put this to bed. The purpose of the Wild and Scenic River Stewardship Council quarter-mile area of interest. Elaine, are you available to speak?
Elaine?
Yes.
She is.
It takes a minute to unmute me. Yep,
Yeah.
I'm here.
All right, so I had a little bit of a conversation with you, and I won't be sure that I didn't get anything wrong here, but I asked you about it, the way that quarter-mile radius consideration plays out for the wild and scenic, and could you just kind of give us your, how you think that's meant to be used as either as a guideline or as a rule or whatever it is?
Sure, and I'll just reiterate what Lauren Bonatakis presented to the Conservation Commission in her presentation last time, which
Okay.
is that we consider the quarter mile as an area of interest around the rivers. So if a project happens to come up that's within that quarter mile of area, we will just look at it. It's not a set guideline. It's not a setback. It's not a hard and fast, you can't do anything within this quarter mile. It is just an area that we're interested in, and we'll look at projects that happen to come up in that area. Which I'm
Okay.
pretty sure is what I do know. That is what Lauren explained
Okay,
in the presentation to the Conservation Commission last time.
Okay, I did not remember all of that. I actually remember a bit of conversation with you, and it was basically you saying the same thing then. And I was concerned that it would get misappropriated, misused, misunderstood. And so somehow that was circulating in my head. And I know, Bob, part of that had to do with the town council late in the process of finalizing wording or whatever for the new solar ordinance, which, at least my understanding of the ordinance is really it was strictly for where you have contaminated sites for solar, because that's really the only thing that's being allowed. And somewhere in there, that quarter-mile radius, which I believe was grabbed from the, maybe even by reference to Wild and Scenic.
Yes.
And I felt like,
the one that came up with it.
I felt like it was, sometimes you grab something because you feel like there's some guidance there. And first thing I thought was, I think the town landfill on Subtown Road is within a quarter mile. And in fact, almost the entire property is within a quarter-mile radius of the headwater, one of the headwaters of Comanche Brook. And just mention another thing too. Within that quarter-mile radius, if you were to ask me to use my best judgment as to which is more threatening to that watershed in those streams, would be 2 acres of solar or a house on 2 acres. And my own personal take would be that a house on 2 acres is more of a threat to that watershed. So I just, which would say if you rule solar out in that area, you need to be taking a look at houses as well. And obviously that's just impractical. People own land. We can't make those takings. And so it was just some things swimming around in the back of my head. But I did want to get that in. And so if it ever comes up again, I would like to be sure that the town council is aware of what the intent of within the Wild and Scenic council, what their meaning is. And as you pointed out, they were working with the National Park Service when they wrote that, and so they had feedback coming down from the federal government as well. So I wanted to be sure, and I didn't know for sure that Elaine was going to be here. I'm delighted she is, so that we kind of clarified that.
Yeah, Elaine did reach out to me regarding that after that vote. It came up again. Yeah, I will say I added that wording based on some of the recommendations that Elaine had provided to me back in an earlier revision of the solar ordinance. So it was in a different area. And I thought, well, it made sense, to go here to protect the wild and scenic rivers, not really realizing that, it might impact some of these contaminated projects. I did bring that up to our town council president, who then talked to our town planner, Jim Lanfear, and he didn't really have too much of a concern about that being a roadblock in terms of being able to move ahead with the Stubtown Road solar project. So it's something that we're, trying to figure out how best to handle, but, it's not a showstopper.
I must say, I did not even remember that it was you that put that in there. I just remembered
Yeah.
that it came in there, and it made me kind of, little question marks came up in my head there about it. And so, and at least myself, I imagine as a commission, if we took a vote right now, would all be in favor of the Stubtown landfill. So, the capping that or putting the solar on that cap, it makes very good sense as far as I'm concerned. Does anybody else, is anybody here think, can we take a consensus show of support for the, and based on the information we have to date for that, the Stubtown landfill solar? Brad or Lydia, do you have any thoughts on that?
Nothing different than y'all's. I mean, I'm definitely in support of it, for sure.
Okay.
I agree with you guys on that as well.
Okay, and Deb, I think you
Yeah,
and I,
and yeah, definitely, and when you look at the landfill solar project in East Providence on Forbes Street, which is on an old landfill, it's amazing. It's much bigger than Stubtown will ever be. But everybody that lives in that neck of the woods love it. They love it. They love the fact that it's something clean going on, something that once was a dump, basically. So, and I've got friends and relatives who live there, and they're all very pleased. So it's like good to know, because the people who live near it are going to have the most to say about it, for sure.
all right. So why don't you just put something in the notes here that so we can show support. We just a consensus was that we look forward to that project.
Yeah.
Okay, officer reports. The planning board, zoning board. Deb.
Oh, planning board. We're going to do the special meeting. Kind of was a little bit of a disappointment in that things didn't get accomplished the way everyone wanted them to. So the next meeting is going to be again Stone Ridge Solar, and the Camoli, the next special meeting, which is next week, and the Camoli, if it gets heard, solar project. And also there's one more on the list. Oh, they're going to also discuss the Skunk Hill.
Okay.
Those are the three that are coming up. So I'll keep you posted. We'll see. There's a lot of legal stuff going on right now. We're just gonna have to see how it all plays out.
Okay.
Any questions for me about that?
I've got a couple of comments I might have, but it can go under old business under the solar projects there maybe. So,
Okay.
so wait on that. Legislation. I saw some comment from you about or maybe that was from April
That was April.
that things were just not getting out of committee.
That's basically what's going on there. They've got a lot of other fish to fry in the General Assembly right now. So, but I keep an eye out. They're still, believe it or not, they are still submitting new bills, even as of last week.
Oh,
Yeah. So I'll be glad when we can meet in person there too. Okay.
okay. So old business, Stone Ridge.
It's going to be held, it's going to be heard next week in planning board.
All right. And I mean, we put our comments in.
Yep.
How long ago was that? That was a month or?
It's a month ago on that one, and 2 weeks ago on the Camoli Solar.
Yeah. So Has anybody got any new comments on either of those two projects?
Well, the Camoli one has there's some legal stuff going on with that I'm still trying to figure out exactly what it is, but
I missed a part of,
they didn't present at the last meeting because there was some kind of a legal thing that wasn't, I'm not a lawyer, so don't ask me, but Joelle Rocha didn't feel they should go forward in presenting because of what was going on, so we'll see what happens this week coming up.
all right, and I really got the feeling from our special meeting we had for Camoli, the Conservation Commission had, that we got this outfit, the engineers, we got the project owners or developer, and then all they want to do is just do their normal solar project, throw up the chain link fence, buy the cheapest panels they can get that will make almost as much electricity or something. I mean, I just really felt like I was pulling my hair with them overall. You know, I think they've got the best, in my own opinion, the best set of circumstances for a project that we've probably had come before the town for a bigger than a farm type project, and I'll be darned if I don't want to see them have to do an outstanding job and not we don't care. They didn't want to go with operating panels, but tracking panels, because you got to actually have a maintenance crew come out and do things. It doesn't make any difference that they'll make a little bit more money out of that. They just want it the old simple, easy, we don't have to have employees type of way. And it's just like that's not good enough. You know, I'm bothered. I've been bothered by every solar project that's come up so far, that they're never aiming to be better. They just want to get by and make their money. And
Yeah.
that's I hate to be lecturing on that, but that was very much the feeling that I got with almost every question I asked them. And so I'm hoping that by conveying that to the planning board, that maybe the planning board will take up the torch a little bit and use their, you know, they've got some powers they can use there. They can certainly put pressure on, and I hope they will.
We asked, you know, we addressed some serious concerns in our notes to them, so into our recommendations. So hopefully they'll pick up on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Support from the town IT with the Zoom and recordings. I will tell you guys, I was just about freaking out about 5 minutes past 7. I could not get in. I thought I was supposed to be the one that somehow just went there and it recognized me. And I will ask right now, Bob,
Yes.
for if this situation comes up at our next meeting and we're not back in person, am I ever, you know, frankly, I'd like to always avoid this, being the one that has to do the IT and screw it up. But should I have known that I wasn't going to be in control starting out? Because last time I handed it off to you.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess there was some miscommunication, and I apologize for that. I did talk to Jeff earlier today. He shared with me the credentials for the town Zoom account, and he walked me through, you know, just to make sure I knew, you know, how to log in, how to start the meeting. So I was planning on just starting the meeting. My apologies for not getting there and starting it 5 minutes early. I was just trying to finish up dinner and stuff. But yeah, I will, you know, one way or the other, either Jeff or I will end up just starting the meeting like 5 minutes ahead of time. And, you know, I'll kind of watch and promote you guys to panelists as you join. Next time it'll go smoother because I'll start the meeting actually 5 or 10 minutes early. So
Would it make sense logistically for me to put together the agenda, the actual agenda we're doing, not all the instructions on how to get on.
Yeah.
And provide that to Jeff or somebody, and because right now I'm having to grab that information, put it into the agenda. What if I do something wrong? And I'm also thinking I'm trying to print this thing on one page if I can. Also, because there's usually not much room on that bulletin board at Town Hall to post stuff. So I'm trying to do it as a single page. So I compressed. He had stuff all spread out. I tried to compress all those little things. He had a whole bunch of phone numbers. It's like, do we really need all that? But maybe we do need all those numbers. I don't know. But it seemed like we could get some of that down. Maybe somebody else ought to be the one that takes my agenda, puts that stuff in, and then puts it up on the town website. And I might have to be the one to send it to the Secretary of State. I'm not sure if somebody else can do it. I guess I'd have to. I'm not sure how it goes, but I'm trying to find a way that it works, just so that it's not hours of effort. Get it down to 15 minutes or something.
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah.
And maybe think about other commissions and boards too that don't have the town staff there with them. If they're going to have to jump through these hoops, how can we all do it so that it's not a burden on us and it gets done properly?
And the other thing too is that the way that citizens can access the agendas, it's click on the town website and it takes you to the Secretary of State's office. I would like a hard copy of the agenda just on the page of the town of Hopkinton, so that citizens can just click on that agenda and there's their information. None of this going to the Secretary of State's office, because that, for Harvey and I had a real learning curve with Secretary of State's office.
Oh, it's not easy to navigate, I know. And that's one of the reasons where I've been pushing for folks to get agendas and meeting minutes and so forth onto our own town website. But of course there was some,
what I'm talking about.
There was some disconnect. Well, if you go to the main page of our town website, over on the left, there's the agendas of the upcoming town meetings. And that's an RSS feed, right? So that's the Secretary of State website.
Yeah.
Problem is, if you can click on it, so now as soon as you're 5 minutes into the meeting, like this meeting, you won't find that agenda there anymore. It's gone because the RSS feed is gone. But if you go on our website to under the heading of meetings at the top, there's minutes and agendas, and all of the minutes and agendas and videos are linked that way for all of the meetings coming up.
So it's not going to Secretary of State's office
No,
to read
it's
it?
on our website directly.
Okay. Maybe that box that you're talking about, Bob, where you find those things, should be a more prominent, or kind of have a go to this to get to the agenda. Because I've had so many people say to me, I can't find it. Where is it? It's,
It's a work in progress, but we've got to make sure there's an easy way for all of the commissions to provide these documents to Jeff or whoever in the town so that they can post them to the town website.
Okay.
That's a totally separate thing from the Secretary of State website.
Yeah. Oh, I know that, Bob. I know that. I'm just trying to think of what can be easier for everybody.
Yeah, that's what we're working on. But in the middle of all of this, Jeff is looking at a different platform for our website, because our whole website needs to be relooked at. So he's looking at a platform for it.
I'm all for that.
So we'll kind of dovetail that into it. But yeah, I'm working with him on that.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
Sure.
All right, new business, commission member forum. Anybody have anything? Anything you want to bring up in the future? Anything, any comments, anything?
Well, were we going to talk about the addition to the Board River Health Center?
Yes.
Didn't they send us documents around to look at?
Yeah, I'm going to bring it up under other because,
I have
because,
one question on that.
all right, well, hang
Can
on
the
just one
well
second.
handle it?
All right, let's just see if we have a public, Elaine, I think you're our public. Do you have anything you want to say?
There's no call-ins?
Yeah, oops, I'm unmuted. I do. I think I'd like to expand upon the quarter mile and wild and scenic now that I'm thinking about things. In general, well, not in general, wild and scenic's main goal at commenting at the planning board's meetings is to have people who have projects coming before the planning board to pay attention to the rivers. That's pretty much it. We want you to pay attention to the fact that you have these nationally recognized wild and scenic rivers that you are building or putting solar panels or doing something to within a quarter of a mile of the river. Not that that's a hard and fast, you can't do anything within a quarter of a mile, but just pay attention that there is this river exists. And we're encouraging the planning boards to ask for recommendations that go at least a little bit beyond DEMs. DEM is going to change it. Right now it's 100 feet. It's going to be going to 200 feet from the rivers, from the larger rivers and the deeper rivers, that they would require a permit if you wanted to alter any of the existing vegetation next to those rivers. So that would include residential developments and solar developments. It would be good if the planners, if the project developers would consider this before they go to the planning board. So we're hoping that if we say it enough times, they will think about this before they come before the planning board and make some adjustments, like Stone Ridge is putting in the water gardens, or they're going to be putting in the wildflowers in the water retention areas, something above and beyond just clear to the absolute closest you can get that DEM will allow, and then say, well, we followed the rules, everything's okay. That's why I speak out at the meetings, is to raise awareness of the rivers and to hope that developers take them into account and go above and beyond the minimum that they're required for the setbacks from the rivers. I guess that's what I want to say about that.
All right, thank you very much. That's, I agree with you. If you're pretty much at every planning board meeting at some point, all they have to do is just see your face and they know what's going to get said, and you know, and the message will be there. So that's good.
Well, I was very surprised when, I don't want to pick on Stone Ridge, but that's the one that just stuck in my head recently, when they presented their very first packets about the development. The wildlife person didn't mention it, that it was a wild and scenic river. The engineering company didn't mention it. Hopkinton's engineering company that reviewed it didn't mention it. I was surprised at this point that people are still not aware. So if anyone has any ideas on how we can make more of the general public aware, or more of these developers aware, we're definitely open to hearing those thoughts.
I have an answer for you right off the bat.
Go ahead.
We have a very extensive set of checklists and stuff that the town has created as part of the planning documents. And I'm assuming that they're all approved by the planning board for, you know, like in the on your checklist, one of the checklists, are you within a quarter of a mile of a wild and scenic river, or something like that.
Yeah.
Those checklists, over the years, we lobbied for a lot of things to get added onto those checklists that are there now. And the engineers are walking down through that, and they're having to think about it because I see a hand coming up. Did anybody else see that? I'm not sure who that is.
Oh,
We have somebody that's
That's
called in, I guess.
Joe Moreau.
yeah, I thought Elena was done with her comments, so I unmuted Joe. So let's, once Elaine's done with her comments, I will unmute Joe and allow him to speak.
All right.
So
Anyway,
do
so-
I go to the planning board? How do I go about this? How would I go about it with our planning board?
It might be best to approach the planner, and I can't quite remember the process because I think those checklists are part of the plan, the ordinance. The regulations. I'm sorry, the
Yeah.
subdivision and land development regulations. So I'm not sure that somebody can just add it. But the request should be there that it
Okay.
get added, and whenever we get back to our comp plan or comp plan update, some things can be recommended to be put in the comp plan, which then kind of tells people we're supposed to be working on this stuff. So I think that's an area where you can make some progress over time.
Okay, great, thank you. I'll follow that up.
Okay, Joe, sorry about the confusion. I assume that's you, Joe Moreau. If you can just state your name.
Hi, this is Joe Moreau. I am pleased to say I did not have any problems tonight joining this meeting.
Yay.
Not one problem. Bob is correct on what he was saying. At the last council meeting, a resident and our council president had a very good discussion concerning the farm viability and the workshop during the public forum section of the meeting. Mike Geary did say that he would step up. I thought about that, and I spoke to Mike the next day about it, and we discussed the possibility to have another council member sponsor it. And the reason we were talking about it was just so there would not appear to be a conflict of interest, since Mike is under the farm viability and currently has solar. What we thought of was the fact that I did speak to a resident who was considering to sponsor this workshop, similar to what we did for the Skelco project. I did speak to another council member who said that I spoke to another council member who said they would sponsor it. And I guess my point is, it's important to clarify the process, because I don't know if a council member can start the process. I mean, Lisa would certainly know that. It may just be that a resident would sponsor this. I'll bring it to a council member. The council member would sponsor it. And then Mike, if he chose to, could be in charge of the workshop. That's one of the things we talked about, but I think it just needs to be clarified. The last thing I want to say is I agree with Javi about most of these solar projects that I've listened to. I think Stone Ridge has been the exception to the rule. As we all know, they've made a lot of concessions. Just the fact that they went from a 50,000 square foot building to 15,000 square foot, what they're doing with the trails and the cemetery and everything else. It's encouraging to see, people like that instead of people that are looking to make every dollar that they can. But I just want to make sure that we do the farm viability in the correct steps so that it doesn't come back to bite us. Because I don't know how it works. I know the way they did it for Skelcos, and it had to be, the steps that I outlined. So, Bob, I don't know if you had any comments or what you think about it, but or Javi or anyone else.
Yeah, this is Bob. I don't know what the procedure is. I can tell you we will figure it out and we will make sure we follow the right steps.
Great.
Right.
Javi, you did a great job
On what?
on the whole meeting. And as Debbie and I have talked about, can't wait for these face-to-face meetings where we can, you know, whether it's at the middle school or the town hall, but just eliminate the whole Zoom part of it.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I don't see any other hands up, so.
All right, so if there's nobody else in public forum, we'll move on to the next item. This is not something I've done very much on, but I got approached from the Bill, I forget what his last name is now, the North Smithfield Conservation Commission chair. He's been a chairman for a long time over there, like I've been over here. And he was working with Westerly, which is there, and Stonington on improving kayak and canoeing on the river. And they're working with the Mashantucket tribe, who owns some land right over near Boombridge, Boombridge Road Bridge. That's been reopened in a couple of months now. And the tribe is supposedly going to give them a place to put a new landing in right there. And right now they're planning on a kayak canoe trail that starts at, has anybody ever been to Post Office Lane in Potter Hill? The DM acquired.
Yep.
Lydia, was that you?
Yes, Elaine too, yes.
Lane, yeah. So anyway, I can't, you know, I've gone there, but I never went there as thinking about that as a place to put in.
Oh, it's fantastic.
For a put in?
Yes, I use it all the time.
Oh, you know what it was? I was afraid it was all muddy. I couldn't remember if it was, you know, what you need ideally is a sandy, gravelly, gentle slope. So no matter what level the river's at, you know, you've still got a good place to put in and put out with a solid bottom. So you're saying it's got a good bottom there?
It's a little muddy, but there's spaces for 10 cars to park safely. And it's a very easy grassy lane that goes from the parking lot to the put-in.
Yep.
Depending on the water, the water gets up on the grass during really high spring tides. It gets up on the grass, which makes it very easy to get in. If during low water, it's a tiny bit muddy, but it's not a steep drop off at all. So yeah, your feet may get 2 inches of water mud, and then you get it in your kayak. But I've used it from April till November, and it's right near my house.
Oh, that's right.
I'm very happy with that compared to the Laurel Lane one that we used to use, which is dangerous and only one car can park there, and it's getting eroded, and there's just no comparison between those two sites. And they're within 60 seconds of each other by car.
So we're calling it they proposed this, they were going to call it a tri-town, and then he called me and we talked about it. I said, don't make it a quad town. But part of my problem with putting in right there is we're already beyond the Hopkinton line. We're already into Westerly and North Stonington on the two sides of the river. But I was just mostly concerned that it might be muddy and muddy and steep. Which is a great combination. You know, so this.
Yeah, definitely not steep. No, not steep.
So it sounds like it's doable. They're trying to open up this other place at right next to Boom Bridge, and all they're going to do is just do some. They're doing some trifold brochures, and I'm sure there'll be stuff to put up on our websites and everything. But I thought was a nice thing. They're using the logo of the 4 towns, you know, that sort of thing. Just makes it as an interesting trail. And, you know, water trails are are very important in South County. So I just wanted to bring that up. I haven't had to do any real work on it, thank goodness. But if,
Can
you
I
know,
make another comment?
oh, please.
I did want to say that Chip, the alternate rep from Hopkinton, has been looking into speaking with Narragansett Electric about the land that they own on the Hopkinton side that I don't know how to describe that. It's off,
Narragansett Trail, Narragansett
Yeah.
Road Trail, Narragansett Trail. Is that what you mean,
Narragansett
Tom?
Way.
Narragansett Way, thank you.
Narragansett Way, yes.
Yes.
So it's that very nice sandy beach, which would be an absolutely fantastic Hopkinton put in, pull out spot. He contacted the company that they are in the process of selling the land to, and they said that transfer won't go through for a year or two, and for him to contact Narragansett Electric right now before that transfer of property goes to them. So he is pursuing that to see if it'd be really nice if they gave us access to it, or at least, yeah, give us access.
So I thought a lot of that land had transferred some years back, and I did not go back and do any more research, but that it's got to be like a half mile or so. It's a long drive back on that old asphalt road that goes back to where the power plant was and the substation. And so that's one downside of a put-in point is, I know we've learned from my trails, we try to have the trailheads very, very visible from a major street so that you don't have the parties and the trash and all the other things that happen when you're a quarter mile, half mile down a lane like that. So that will be a downside of that.
Okay, that's good to keep in mind. It'd be good to get
some-
permission. How about just permission to be able to stop there and have lunch, which we all do anyways without having permission?
That doesn't change anything because that's the way it's done. It's a great swimming spot too. And so I think I would definitely say pursue that. It's just that I know that right now I don't even know if that bar is, the gate is typically closed there or not. I forget to look at it anymore. But, there's a bar gate out near the street. And I think that old road services one or two small properties back there too. So
Yes, it does, yeah.
it's a little convoluted, and it requires quite a bit of investigation, I suspect, to figure the whole thing out. I know when we rezoned the old, when I first moved here was Imperial Wallpaper, and then later became Gary Flashlight, the plan out front, they own a lot of land, most of which is reasonably wet or isolated. There could be some houses potentially built in the back. Their property they had been lawfully non-conforming, and it was rezoned to manufacturing, I think, maybe 10 years ago. And they had a customer that was going to buy, and they were in the defense industry or whatever. Anyway, something happened. They didn't follow through. But there's a lot of land there that does not do that factory location any good at all. They'll never be using it. So that all of that, there'll be, and it's got a major amount of river frontage. So, they never have enough time.
Is that something you would like us to partner with you on to look into?
That would be great. And it has, I believe it has some frontage on that Narragansett Way. So if you're looking at that area.
Yeah, could you send me the information? I can't quite picture where you're talking about.
Well, there's, you know where the factory is out on Chase Hill Road.
Yes.
All right, and so it's part of their property. They might
their
own
property. Okay.
They might own 100 acres and only use 5. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And the value is, the real value there is the land right up where the factory is. So maybe we could have a sit down sometime and go over all of this, because I've been wanting to see that area, preserved in some good, meaningful way for a long time, and not just be chiseled off pieces here and there.
Sure, be happy to talk to you about that.
I believe a long time ago, maybe 30 years ago or 25 years ago or so, Narragansett Electric may have approached the town or something to see if, the land, there was any interest in preserving the land. And I don't think it was, that people just weren't thinking that way at the time. But anyway, that's a bit of a discussion. We can have that some more, but it's an area, that whole area would be great to preserve. And it'd be interesting to find out, because that is still in the area influenced by Potter Hill Dam. Am I correct on that? There's still some backup there? No, there's a real flow there in there.
So, yeah.
Maybe it's just down. Maybe it's just downstream from there where the backup from the dam.
That's above stream of the bridge, so yeah, that shouldn't be affected.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get long-winded, but I've really wanted to see that area treated better. And there's a lot of trash that gets dumped down there on occasions. All right. So the next one was Potter Hill Dam and Mill. Bob might know more than any of the rest of us. You did a walk there a couple of months ago, right?
I did a walk. It really was intended to kind of show us the area and give us an overview of what they were thinking of doing. There's I forget the name of the gentleman in charge of this project, but they're working with mostly the town of Westerly, because the dam, not the dam, but the old mill is Westerly property. They are, looking at the feasibility of what to do with the property, how to dismantle the old mill, and what to do with the dam. The intent, I think, is to remove the dam and kind of restore it back to a more natural state, like was done on 91 in Bradford. They're also trying to reach out at this point. They're trying to reach out to all of the Ashaway residents along the river, both upstream and downstream of the dam, and just trying and get a census and have them fill out a questionnaire and trying to get information about, where your wells are drilled, how deep are your wells, what, trying to figure out what the potential impact is to that. And certainly there are some people that are, voicing concerns about this project. So, they're definitely looking at that now, but it's early stages. We were kind of brought in a little bit late to the game, but now we are involved and we are, being made of, we're keeping in their line of communication. So we'll be abreast of what they're working on. That's really all I have.
All right. So it is, I'm just following it too. I've been on the Southern Rhode Island Conservation District Board for a couple of decades now, probably. And so I work with Gina Fuller, who, is doing the outreach for this to those neighbors of that area. And it's been an incredibly long period of time that it burned in the early 80s. It may have had a fire before that, but somebody went in and torched it around 1980-ish or so, as I recall, when I first had moved here. And it should have been cleaned up for the last 40 years. So it definitely hasn't been moving at a fast pace. And the dam itself is a threat. And it's also, the fish passage issue. So I hope that I think the answer is going to have to be and certainly if it's going to be funded, is going to require removal of the dam. I don't think the NOAA is going to be helping provide money for, rebuilding the dam or something like that. I don't see something like that happening. So I don't think there'll be any funding source unless it involves removal. Then it's just a question of whether they do something like the weirs at Bradford to maintain that water level above. And at least the discussions that I've heard, technical, and you heard it, maybe heard it too, is the different set of conditions here, and that probably is not going to be the first proposition that will come forward. But then you got to bring in all the people and their concerns, and maybe that affects it in a different way. So, anybody else have any knowledge of the dam?
Not really.
I think it will affect, once it's gone, we might be able to end up with, and Bob, keep an eye out for this, places to rebuild that washed out area along where Laurel Street takes off, at the intersection with Maxon Street. That's so washed out from what it was when I first moved here, that there might be some restoration there. There might be room to have some parking and have a decent place to put a kayak into the water at that spot, and not just over on Post Office Lane. So just kind of keep that in mind, that whatever changes there, it might make it possible to have a decent spot there again on the Hopkinton side.
Sure.
Okay, I had under other, because I got something from the engineer. Deb, you got it too then.
Yes.
Wood River Health Services expansion. They have a major 2-story expansion and more parking. And it's been pretty recent that the actual requirements in the, I think it's in the checkoffs for the planning board submittals to get thoughts from the Conservation Commission.
Mhm.
And it normally wasn't done where they actually applicants reached out to us before. We've always just had to insert ourselves somewhere along the line. But anyway, we have the engineer for, it's really a conceptual plan that he gave us for Wood River Health Service. And I'll just say it arrived, I think it was Monday or Tuesday it arrived. It was after I'd gotten the agenda out. So I wasn't able to put this on, but it certainly as an item to bring it up, to acknowledge that there's an application, and they're just asking for comments on basically where they're going to discharge their stormwater, that sort of thing, I think. And frankly, I didn't think the plans were advanced enough that we could really offer any real comment at this point anyway. Did you look at the plans, Deb?
Yeah, I did. And the only question I had, and it was on the second sheet, concerning the well and the capacity of the well with the increased square footage, more bathrooms, obviously, and so forth. The well to that property, I believe, is in the back of the parking lot, the existing parking lot right now. And I just wondered if it didn't say anything about whether they had the well tested to see how much water they get from it every hour, if it's going to be adequate, or are they going to need another well. I know there, on the preliminary plans also, there's a septic expansion or an extra septic going in on the side of the new building. At least it's just, conceptually in there. So if they're considering on increasing the septic, I would think that they would have to check the well to make sure that they're getting enough production out of that well, or they're going to need another one. Those are the only things I ran into.
Right, no, that's
Right
very good.
off the bat.
Same old things we always have to worry about in a rural town is water and septic.
You got it.
Yep. So anyway, I didn't think we can't really have a a whole lot of discussion on anyway, but just to acknowledge that the plans have been received and shared with everybody. And I have no idea when that project would come before the planning board. I think it would be under development plan review. So it could be a project, I think under development plan review, something could potentially be approved first night. Then you bring up an issue like that with a well and stuff, and if they don't do a good presentation, I could see it deferred to a later time, come back and bring more information. So anyway, that was,
They've already made one, they've already had one visit to the planning board already.
oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, they
Yes.
did. Just
All right,
so-
sorry, I didn't realize that. Okay. All right, anybody else comments on Wood River Health? I will say, it looks like they're running out of property.
They are.
Yeah.
They're pretty much gonna have to regrade the front of it with the parking that they are proposing, the additional parking. They're gonna have to kind of regrade that front a little bit too, because it's on a slope right now. And so I don't
You
know,
know,
it does
they
look like
might-
they're doing some stormwater remediation for that new lot, but as I said, they're gonna have a little groundwork to do.
The big thing about parking lots, back, I know sometime back, we had all these, we had heavy requirements for parking, heavier than they needed to be. You had to put it in giant parking lots, and suddenly we brightened up and realized every time you put in another parking space, that's another 150, whatever it is, square feet of impervious surface, and we took a look and we made some major reductions in the amount of parking that was required. And then we had some examples, I don't know if we ever did it in Hopkinton, where you had grass spillover parking areas that could be used in rare events. If it was a commercial thing, it would be holiday shopping or something, when you actually fill up a usually empty parking lot. And so that would be a thing to find out if they're just following some rote formula for parking spaces, and maybe they don't need quite as many spaces as they have there. They should know from experience what they need.
Yeah, I think too that the way this is proposed, there's going to be a first level and a second level. So that first level, the parking access would have to be in the front. It has to be handicap accessible because it's that kind of place, you know what I mean? People go in there in wheelchairs and on crutches and all that. So they obviously need to have parking at the front of this new addition.
Right.
And that's what it looked like. It looked like it was going to be all handicap parking there. So
Oh, okay. I didn't
Yeah,
look at it close enough.
it's
See
more,
that.
safety and convenience of the patients.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. All right. Identify topics for the next meeting. Review and assign action items.
Okay.
Is there anything?
Somebody's got their hand up. Is that still Joe? Or did he not put his hand down?
I don't see a hand
Bob,
up.
do you see?
He didn't put his hand down. He's,
He didn't
I
put his
mean,
hand Okay, put your hand down, Joe. There we go.
we can ask Joe if you have another comment. Go ahead and press *6 to unmute.
I don't know why that just popped up in front of me all of a sudden.
All right, I'm going to start winding it down. If it turns out he's trying to get on, we'll stop and let him speak. So identify topics for the next meeting. Is there, let's see, what did we come up with earlier? The farm viability ordinance. I would think that's going to be our featured item for sure at the next ordinance, and we'll try to have at least be as far as knowing which version of the ordinance is the one that we left off with. Yeah, that's got to have been almost 3 years ago. It's been a long time.
I've got all the files, Harvey. I'll find it.
Okay, all right. So you send it out, I'll send out whatever I find. And they'll agree, or we'll have to hash it out and figure out which is,
Because I think that the last one that we submitted, and I don't know, you said you sent something to Lisa.
yeah,
Do you know what you sent to Lisa?
you know, I'm just, well, I can go pull out that email
Oh,
that I
okay.
sent her and share that around or something. It'd be the simplest thing. I
ju-
can't even
I'm
remember
trying
what
to
the nature of the
compare-
question was now.
I'm just trying to compare versions, that's all,
Yeah.
Harvey.
Okay, yeah, all
From what
right.
I understand, we put in several different versions back and forth. When
All
we
right,
were
so,
meeting with the town council.
all right, so is there anything else? Anybody has any other action items that we have besides that you wrote down, Deb?
The only action item is for us to assess which are drafts of farm variability ordinance and which one is the last one, and then to disseminate it accordingly.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. All right, why don't we, nobody else bringing up anything else and nobody's waving their hands at us, so
Thank God.
why don't we move on to adjournment? Have a motion?
I would love to make a motion that we adjourn.
I second it, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right,
In
that was
favor?
Lydia. All right, all in favor? Aye.
I
Aye.
Fred, okay,
Okay.
unanimous.
We're adjourned.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.